Time. It is the invisible ruler of our lives. We wake up by the clock, we eat by the clock, and we sleep by the clock. Our entire civilization is built on the rising and setting of the sun. But have you ever wondered what would happen if you simply deleted it? What if you took away the sun, the moon, and every single watch? Would you still be you? Would your body know when to sleep, or would you drift into madness? In 1962, a 23-year-old French geologist named Michel Siffre decided to answer this question. He didn't do it in a lab. He didn't do it in a hospital. He decided to bury himself alive. He found a subterranean glacier in the French Alps, a place of eternal darkness, freezing temperatures, and absolute silence. He planned to stay there for 2 months, alone, without a clock, without a calendar, and without any sunlight. He thought he was going to study geology, but he ended up discovering something far more terrifying about the human brain. This is the story of the man who tried to kill time, and how time almost killed him. It was July 16, 1962. The location was the Scarasson Cavern, a hostile environment usually reserved for extreme explorers. Michel Siffre descended 130 meters below the surface of the Earth. As he climbed down the rope, the light of the sun slowly faded away, replaced by the artificial beam of his flashlight. When he reached the bottom, he set up a small nylon tent on the ice. This would be his home. The conditions were miserable. The temperature was constantly below freezing, hovering around -0 degrees Celsius. The humidity was 98%. Everything was wet, cold, and dark. But the most important part of his equipment was what he didn't have. He had left his watch at the surface. His only connection to the outside world was a telephone line, but there was a strict rule. It was a one-way street of information. Siffre would call the surface team to tell them when he was going to sleep, when he woke up, and when he ate. But the team was forbidden from telling him what time it actually was. For the first few days, Siffre tried to keep a routine. He would wake up, examine the rocks, read a book, eat, and go back to sleep. He counted his pulse to measure seconds. He tried to mentally track the hours. He thought he was in control, but deep inside his brain, without the cue of sunlight, his biological clock, his circadian rhythm, was beginning to drift. As the days turned into weeks, the darkness began to warp his reality. Siffre later wrote in his journal that his memory was the first thing to go. In the absolute dark, without the markers of morning or evening, his brain stopped forming short-term memories. He would make a cup of tea and forget it existed 2 minutes later. He couldn't remember what he did an hour ago. The timeline of his life was dissolving. Then something bizarre happened to his sleep. On the surface, we live in a 24-hour cycle. But down in the ice, Siffre's body began to stretch time. He would call the surface and say, "I am going to take a short nap." He would wake up thinking he had slept for an hour or two. In reality, he had been asleep for 10 hours. One day, he woke up, had breakfast, worked on his research, read for a bit, had lunch, and then went back to sleep. To him, it felt like a normal, productive day. But the team on the surface was in shock. Siffre had been awake for 36 hours straight. He was living a 48-hour day, 36 hours of activity followed by 12 hours of sleep, and he didn't even realize it. His perception of time was compressing. 2 real days felt like 1 day to him. He was effectively living at half speed, while the world above rushed past him. The psychological toll was immense. The isolation was absolute. He started to sing loudly to break the silence. He danced in the freezing cold just to feel alive. He began to obsess over small details. The darkness wasn't just empty, it was heavy. It pressed against his mind. He later admitted to moments of deep despair, where the sheer monotony almost broke him. Finally, the experiment was over. According to Siffre's calculations in his notebook, the date was August 20th. He believed he had 5 more weeks to go. He was preparing his mind to stay longer. Then, the phone rang. It was the surface team. They told him the experiment was finished. Siffre argued with them. "No," he said. "It's only August 20th, the team corrected him. It was September 14th. Pause and think about that. Siffre had lost track of 25 full days. An entire month of his life had simply vanished. His brain had compressed time so drastically that he thought only 30-odd days had passed, when in reality he had been underground for 2 months. When he climbed out of the cave, he was pale, weak, and mentally shaken. He wore dark sunglasses because the sun, which he hadn't seen in 60 days, was blindingly painful. He had proven that time is not a fixed constant for the human mind. It is a fragile construction. You would think that after losing a month of his life, Siffre would never go back. You would be wrong. 10 years later, in 1972, NASA approached him. Space travel was becoming a reality, and astronauts would be spending months in isolation. NASA needed to know, could a human withstand this for longer? So, at the age of 33, Michel Siffre went back underground. This time, into Midnight Cave in Texas, and this time for 6 months. If the first experiment was difficult, the second one was a descent into hell. The cave was filled with bat guano and dust. The equipment broke down. But the worst part was the mental deterioration. During this 6-month isolation, Siffre's cycles went completely chaotic. Sometimes he would sleep for 18 hours, sometimes he stayed awake for days, but the psychological damage was severe. He stopped doing his scientific tasks. He fell into a deep, dark depression. He began to hallucinate imaginary companions just to have someone to talk to. At his lowest point, he considered suicide. He realized that time isn't just a measurement, it is the anchor of our sanity. Without it, we drift into a void. When Michel Siffre finally emerged from the Texas cave after 205 days, he was a changed man. His experiments rewrote the textbooks on human biology. He proved that we have an internal body clock, and when we ignore it, we pay a heavy price. Today, as we sit in our rooms with blackout curtains, staring at screens late into the night, ignoring the sun, we are all conducting a mini version of Siffre's experiment. We are fighting our own biology. Michel Siffre showed us that time is not something you see on a watch. Time is inside us, and when you try to kill time, you might just end up killing a part of yourself. Thanks for watching this journey into the dark. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Bright Mind for more stories that challenge your reality.